jobs that we were perfectly capable of doing. And the issue was the gas companies and their subcontractors, North Energy and their subcontractors, didn't know where to find the people there that could do the things that they needed to have done. Secondly, a lot of our people had no idea of how their skill sets fit into the gas company's needs. And I started to try to make those connections. You know, they were doing a road bore at one point, and they broke a hydraulic line, and I happened to be on site when it happened, and I said, what are you going to do? And they said, well, you know, we're going to go up to Syracuse to Milton Cat to get this line repaired. And I said, why are you going to Syracuse, right? I got Bird's Truck Sales, and I've got John's Body over in Bainbridge that both have capabilities of doing some pretty good sized hydraulic hose repair, and they wound up making a connection to the companies that way. The other thing I realized immediately upon the drilling of the well on my property was that most people have no understanding of the process of drilling, hydraulic fracturing, the technology, and how it actually works. And you're going to see some things here I know that are erroneous based on the new SGEIS, and I'll point those out later. But I was asked by the county to go in and try to do some discovery on that. To do that, I joined the IOGA, which is the Independent Oil and Gas Association of New York State. I attend all their meetings. I joined the American Association of Independent Geologists, and I attend their meetings related to shale gas drilling. I'm going to miss one here next week in Pittsburgh. I just don't have time. But I was actually down in Austin, Texas 4 weeks ago for a meeting put on by AIPG and the Groundwater Institute on water quality issues related to shale gas drilling. 2-day seminar. So I think I think I have some pretty good background in this. I also attend all the Penn State seminars on local impacts of drilling and hydraulic fracturing, and I joined the Society of Petroleum Engineers because truly try to read a monthly magazine that's put out by the industry, and you're going to see the technological advances, and you're going to see what the industry is dealing with as far as issues. And I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. From the county standpoint, I work both with the county and with the Chamber of Commerce. One of the things that we did at the Chamber was we put together a brochure. I created a list of 45 or 50 categories of goods and services that the gas industry uses, and I actually went around the county and plugged names into those areas. So we have, we have our surveyors, we have our loggers, we have our people that can do hydraulic repair, people that do mechanical repair, welders and welding supply houses. I plug those in, and I actually drive around and I hand those brochures out when the companies are active in the area to them. I am going to update that later this year because I think we found it was a pretty good tool to get local businesses more involved in this whole activity. One of the other things I'd like to do later this year is put on a program on how to work for the industry, because I'll give you an example. Welding, they broke a platform on a drilling rig on my property. And I said, let me fix that for you. And the guy says, you can't. I said, well, we build aircraft parts. I did aircraft welding. I'm actually familiar with aircraft weld inspection and API pipe and pressure vessel weld inspection. And or not API, but AWS pipe and pressure vessel. And the guy says, no, you're not certified to API 1104. Well, API is American Petroleum Institute, and they have their own welding spec. And you have to be certified to weld anything on a gas drilling rig or anything on the pipeline process with that. I looked at that, and I identified a company up in Syracuse that could actually certify welders to API 1104 if anybody's interested. And I also went to the local BOCES and said, hey, you've got a welding program. Here's the spec. I went over to Trout Creek. I walked through their welding program. They've got all the proper equipment. What they lack is they lack the pipe, because the pipe is a specific alloy for gas pipeline. And they lack the spec. They didn't understand that the chamfers on the end and stuff are different. So actually, our local BOCES right now is teaching to the API 1104 spec, and they're not certifying the welders, but they are teaching to that spec. And then when they go to work for a company, the company will take the weld samples and send them out, have them certified in Syracuse or wherever they want to do that. That's important because over the next year or two, we have got the Constitution pipeline, which is a 30-inch high-pressure line that's going to be constructed from the Pennsylvania border through Afton and Bainbridge around the backside of Sydney up to Central Bridge, New York. It's an opportunity for some of our local people to have jobs. There's a second pipeline that's been proposed to run parallel to that. We have another pipeline that's being proposed to run from, I'll get these wrong, but it used to be the Dominion in Tennessee, and I don't know who the new owners are, but it used to be the Dominion in Tennessee, runs along Route 20. They're going to run a pipeline down into Hamilton to supply the village of Hamilton and Colgate University. And there's a possibility of Norse continuing to build a pipeline out in Preston. So, I try to keep track of all these things. I work for the county. I mean, they pay me as a consultant, and I think they really pay me because I'm the one who takes a lot of the flack on this and gets beat up a lot, so these town supervisors don't have to always be under the gun. But because I work for the county, I also work for you. So, if you have questions about the economic opportunities, if you have questions about how the process actually works, if you have questions about what's in the DSGEIS or the SGEIS, I am quite capable of answering most of those. I don't BS anybody. I'm not going to give you my opinion. If I tell you that the issue with hydraulic fracturing, hydraulic fracturing is the casing and cementing, I'll give you a 80-page technical paper if you'd like to read it that explains that. And that truly is, if you look at what happened in Dimick, the issue in Dimick, Pennsylvania was a matter of casing and cementing. And if they had done that process in Pennsylvania using the New York State rules that were promulgated or put into place in 1992, that problem would not have occurred because they didn't require cement to surface. They did not require centralizers. And those are the two things that actually led to all the issues in Dimick. And by the way, basically Pennsylvania adopted those rules a year ago last November. I was down in Pennsylvania actually when the DEP and the DEC had those conversations about what our laws were like and what their laws were like and why there was a difference and what the difference would be done. One of the other things that happened here in Chenango County was we were compulsory integrated into a spacing unit with county-owned property. Spacing unit law is fascinating. Part of the reason that we have an ad hoc natural gas committee and we formed it so early in Chenango County was because whether we liked the idea or not, our county was in the gas business. We received a small check from that. Another point that I will make is that there are tax revenues right now that come into the county from the wells. Most people don't understand how that tax system works, but it's an ad valorem tax. I like it because the dollars stay local. Last year there was $647,000 that flowed into Chenango County from 38 wells that are in production. I believe the number is 38 that are in production in Plymouth, Preston, and Smyrna. And that money comes in, as I say, it comes in just like a property tax. The largest beneficiary, of course, would be the school district, as with any property tax system. They get half of it, roughly, and the rest of the money gets divided up between your town, the county, and any other taxing authority, be it a fire district or a police district or an ambulance district. So if anybody tells you that the gas companies are not taxed, we've done some calculations. It looks to us that under the current system, last year it came out to be someplace around a 12% tax on production going to the local municipalities. So it is a convoluted system, though. I could talk on any one of these points for an hour at least, and I have at times, and it is a very complicated system. Other interesting things, the other things that I do for the county, we're a non-charter county, and we can't enter into a lease with county-owned land with the gas company. We can be compulsory integrated. We can't enter into a lease. And I actually, the assistance of Tom Livis, with the assistance of Cliff Crouch, wrote a bill that's, stuck in Albany, like many things are, but a bill that would allow non-charter counties, when they were being compulsory integrated, to enter into a lease, because there's an interesting scenario that went on over in Preston when the town was integrated in to a spacing unit, and we actually leased our mineral rights to another company, which prevented, they never did drill a well, and I think that was part of the reason was because we inoculated ourselves by not entering into the, the default agreement with the state and the gas drilling company. But, the stuff, all of this is far more complicated than most people realize. And the other thing I will say is the technology is advancing so rapidly that many of the problems that occurred 2 years ago are, I won't say non-issues now, but they're much more easily mitigated. So I will stop at that because I think questions and answers are probably going to be more valuable than me just sitting here with a spiel.
Steve?
Mr. David.
Could you explain it to me?
Horizontal and vertical wells?
No, the centralizing you mentioned, where the things that hold the centralizer.
A centralizer, one of the things that, I had this impression, okay, drilling a gas well, okay, I figure, okay, they're gonna drill this hole, and the hole in the ground is not gonna be any even size, it's a random thing. And actually, if any of you have ever worked in manufacturing, they actually drill a hole and they ream it. They actually have a reamer that follows the bit, and they size that hole. And then they put, the process is you put, you drill a hole, and you put, you drill a hole through the aquifer, okay, through the aquifer, and if it's a primary aquifer, you have to go through the aquifer, and then go another 60 foot into bedrock. And then they put a piece of steel pipe down. Well, if you think about it, the steel pipe, isn't straight. And in New York State, at a given number of feet apart, they require what they call centralizers. And the best way I can describe the centralizers that I have seen most commonly used, have you ever seen somebody change a light bulb up in a cathedral ceiling, and they have one of those poles, and it's got they look like springs, like spring steel cages? A centralizer looks almost exactly like that. So what they do is they require those a given number of feet apart, and what it does is it holds that pipe center in the hole. Then what they do is they pump cement down through the pipe, through a shoe at the bottom, and in New York State that cement has to flow all the way back up to the surface of the ground. And that's what protects your aquifer. The first zone of the aquifer, or the aquifer, is that cement sealed against the rock, right? And the centralizer keeps that bond of cement evenly spaced or evenly distributed. One of the other interesting things in New York that's different than Pennsylvania was when you get a permit in New York State, the actual permit's like 3 pages. But then there's always like 12 pages of addendums. I mean, I've seen this, I read one the other day, it was 28 pages of addendums on it. But, what they, one of the things they do is they don't let you stop a string of casing in a gas-bearing zone. So, if you drill down here, that we know the Herkimer and the Oneida sandstone. If you're going to the Utica, we know the Herkimer and the Oneida sandstone contain gas. You wouldn't stop a string of casing in most cases in New York State in a gas-bearing zone. But what they do is they put that first string of casing down, the cement, and then they drill another hole down through that, and there's another string of casing that runs maybe to 2,000 feet, and they're going to force them cement down and back up the inside of the first two. And under the DSGEIS, with the drilling for shale gas, they're actually going to require a third string, which is not required now, but there'll be an additional third string of casing that's going to be required to be put in, and again, centralized and cemented in place. And that's before they can do the kick and go horizontal. So, the technology is certainly there. I sat with 150 some hydrologists, geologists, regulatory people in Austin, and one of the things that absolutely baffles them is how this debate got captured by the likes of Josh Fox. And I think that if I've got to look at anybody and say they got expertise, I'll take those 150 some people that are sitting in the room solving the problems and have been solving the problems for some of them for 40 or 50 years.
Anybody else got anything to ask?
Are the questions now for Steve, or would they be later? But
If we could just go back a bit to the ad valorem tax. I was at a meeting which I think you chaired several weeks ago, and Jim Bays, who I thought who would be here today, mentioned that because of the drop in the price of gas and capping of several wells, and he's in Smyrna, that was another reason that they had a shortfall also. But this was one of the major reasons why they are now expecting that they may have to increase the school tax by 40%. But I understand there was also some challenge by some lumber company that may have impacted on that. Nonetheless, he did say that was quite significant.
I will give you the formula.
Could I finish the question?
Sure.
And bearing that in mind, if one is compulsorily integrated at a time when the price of gas is very low, isn't this somewhat of an unwilling taking of your asset? For example, I may want to sell the gas onto my property, but I might want to wait until the gas price goes up. But if I'm compulsorily integrated, I don't have that choice. So that's one of the agonizing feelings of the people that would say, let's go slow and wait till the market stabilizes.
Ken, I think you asked me 2 questions.
Sure, I'm
Right.
sorry.
No question. You did ask me 2 questions. Ad valorem tax is calculated this way. They take the net value of the gas, they take the gross value, they take out expenses. I have some issues with it because nobody audits it. Companies self-report, and they really only take the first 4 or 5 largest producers within a formation. They get a net value of the gas, and then they divide that by the 5-year average of the Fed discount window rate. How's that for a complex formula? The issue I had, what happens, all right, and then it's a 5-year average of the gas too. So we've got a 5-year average that we're using, and that is, that should take some of that variability out of the tax system. My issue, and I've been addressing this with our state legislatures, is that towns and counties are not allowed to hold, and especially towns, can't hold many dollars in reserve. And my suggestion to towns and to the comptroller's office in New York State is, let the towns hold the first 3 years of that revenue in reserve, and then start spending their 3-year rolling average of that, because that will protect them somewhat from those swings. The price of gas historically has varied radically from year to year, which I guess to address your question about the ad valorem or the compulsory integration and values, man, I would love to know that, how to predict that, because I play the futures market tomorrow and I'd be retired and not have to work for anybody ever again. But the price of gas, I think 2 years ago in November, it was over $15 an MCF. 3 weeks ago, it was less than 2. It traded at 267 yesterday on NYMEX. Lord knows how you're going to predict that, and that's why I do think that it is, and particularly with the 2% property tax cap in place, I do think it's important that we make our legislators and make our comptroller understand the impacts that this could have on small towns. And again, you know, if it's only one well, I'm not sure it's that big a deal. But yeah, I think if there's significant activity over time, and we've got, if we started drilling today, we'd have so few wells drilled over the next 4 or 5 years, it wouldn't have any great impact. We've got time to deal with this. But it is on my radar screen. I understand it's there, and I am addressing this with our state legislators.
Yes.
The wells that are already drilled here in Chenango County are just straight wells, is that correct?
Incorrect. Under New York state law, you can drill horizontal wells, you can drill vertical wells, you can fracture a vertical well with 80,000 gallons of water. And in fact, and I've addressed this with the DEC, you could fracture a zone, a section of a horizontal well, as long as you use less than 80,000 gallons of water. The wells in Smyrna and the Herkimer Sandstone, those are drilled both vertically and horizontally. I think every well drilled here, I think the last wells, 4 wells in Preston were the last vertical wells drilled. Everything drilled since then in Smyrna and Plymouth have been horizontal.
Steve, I remember you when you were a teen bumper.
Uh-oh.
I remember the story because, do you remember Ronnie Heath Smith? They had a well drug on their property. The well people said it wasn't enough for gas, so they closed it up. They
Right.
turned their faucet on, the water was there, and you put a match under it, and it lit up. They no longer could use their water. So they had to go behind your dad's place up to a well up on the hill.
Yeah, we took it out of the spring for them.
That's right. Never could they ever use their water. And I haven't heard much about ruining our water, and that to me is the biggest thing going. We have delicious water.
The gas in water wells is common around here. Stan Barrows, Art and I were just talking, Stan Barrows, who drills water wells, he burned up a drilling rig 8, 10, 12 years ago over in Sherburne because he drilled a water well and they had natural gas. You can't smell it. The farmer walked out of his barn, lit a cigarette, threw the cigarette down, and it caught the drilling rig on fire and then burned the hydraulic line, so they burned the thing right to a crisp. The casing and cementing is again, I'm going to tell you, it's critical. New York State has done it very well since the late 1950s when the DEC first started watching over this stuff.
But the end result is, how is the water? That to me is the biggest problem around.
You're not going to find water in New York State, and I know somebody's going to argue with me with this, but the DEC will tell you they've not had any contamination of water caused by natural gas drilling since the late 1950s. A few incidences, and they were corrected within 24 to 48 hours.
Correct?
They had a leak in the annulus of the casing, and they regrout the well. And it's always been gas. It's not the chemicals used in the hydraulic fracturing that contaminates the well. It's gas contamination. And that gas is coming from not the target formation, it's coming from the aquifer. That's what happened to Keith Smith. He drilled a water well. There was no gas drilling here. He drilled a water well, and there was a pocket of probably, I'm not going to tell you for sure, but it was probably biogenic methane. There are two types of methane. Methane that is caused by the decay of organic matter, and then there's thermogenic methane, which is caused by, where organic matter is under great heat and pressure. And they can actually tell which it is through isotopic signature. But that's not, Keith Smith wasn't caused by gas drilling, right?
No.
What was it caused by? After they drill, he had good water. They drilled.
No, he understands that.
Oh, okay.
No, it was a water well, not gas.
Right, it was a water
What
well.
happens to the fracking water? How is that process being loaded with all kinds of toxic chemicals? What happens to the fracking water to drill that well?
When it comes back,
When it comes back, yeah, what happens?
under the DSGEIS's regulations, contrary to what this shows, it's not going to be held in an open pit. It will be put in metal tanks. The metal tanks will have a secondary containment facility around them. What they've been doing in Pennsylvania is they actually build a berm where all of the drilling equipment is located. They line it with an impervious layer of rubberized plastic, and then they, I know, shake your head at me, but that's okay. They have vacuum trucks on site so that if there is any kind of a leak from any of the tanks, they vacuum it up. That's going to be our requirement under the DSGEIS, and it has proved to be successful in multiple states and multiple incidents.
I think it's kind of contaminated with the Novak farm, the problems that it caused, the cancer rate in McDonough. That's a little scary, and when you're digging, gonna ruin our water.
I'm glad you brought the Novak farm up because, I just want to point out to everyone here, I guess as a
They
point
said
of...
it was okay, we had our own person coming in.
Yeah, you know what, I didn't believe them on that, and I will point out that I was the first person to ever go to the Novak farm, take samples out of those barrels, and take them down to... No?
No, I was.
When was that?
That was back before you were a child, Steve.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I was the conservation officer here, as you may recall. I'm quite familiar with the topography around here too, and I was the first one to see the dead amphibians in the water down there, and yes, contacted the DEC at that time.
Okay.
So that's nice for you to talk about. I have a question for you, Stephen. You're receiving royalties right now from the gas companies?
Yes,
You are?
yeah,
And you're still an advisor to the county?
yes.
Do you feel that that's an ethical sort of situation that maybe should be addressed by people? I mean, why should we trust that you're advising us without any hidden agenda of your own?
Well, I'm already leased, so I guess I can't take any advantage of leasing again.
Yeah, I just find it,
The county-
it's very nice that you attend these meetings with all these people and you're hitting us with isotopes as if we're, we don't know these things. Well, some of us do.
Okay, sure.
And I just question the whole, like, it's almost like an assemblage up there that you've agreed that this is good for us. Well, and I take issue with that. I don't think it is good for us. And I think it has to be proved. And that prove that it can be done well, that the roads won't be destroyed, that our way of life won't be destroyed. I mean, I could have left here at any time, but I chose to live here after my service because I love the area. And now you're telling me that everything is fine and, everything is wonderful and will be great because we have an advisor like you who's going to help us.
No,
I
actually,
think it's wonderful, but I think you have to prove it to me.
Okay, actually, I'm not saying because you have an advisor like me, I'm saying because the agency that you made your career with oversees this. And I do have a great deal of faith in the DEC.
I worked with Mineral Resources for quite a number of years, and for environmental analysis over in Portland. Let me tell you, the staff was so limited at that time, and these were just wells like in Smithville and around the state. Like, I think one guy covered Allegheny County all the way through Portland Onondaga County. I mean, the staff was limited, and it's limited now. So I don't see where we can say, let's leave this in the hands of other people that will be taken care of. The state didn't really take care of us at Novak Farms until people got together and said, hey, let's take a real good look at this. Let's see why are these frogs dying up there? Because the innumerable barrels of hazardous waste that was put in there by Allied Chemical, by the Air Force, and several other people.
Well, by the
private guys who took the stuff, barrels out at night, no back, and put them in the ground. That was going to be the solution. The solution to pollution was dilution and burial. Well, I just wonder about fracking, I worry about the bromines, I worry about lots of other things. Lots of the Susquehanna River now. Tell me about the bromides in the Susquehanna River from the fracking waste that went to this hazard to the treatment plants.
From fracking waste and from acid mining runoff.
I don't say it's acid mining.
and
The
the
bromine levels increased catastrophic after the stuff was brought to the treatment plant.
And has the DEP eliminated that in Pennsylvania?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Pennsylvania's not happy with their water.
The DEP no longer allows the discharge or the treatment of drilling waste in municipal treatment plants in PA. The DEC doesn't allow that in New York State anymore, is my understanding, although there are some plants here that probably, because of the waste that they handle all along, probably could deal with it. I'm not going to make that judgment. I'm going to leave that to the DEC. What I will say is that you can talk about working for the Minerals Division. I've had Linda Kolark, perhaps you knew Linda?
No.
Okay, and maybe you knew Joe Yaros then? You don't,
I
okay.
can't hear you.
I thought maybe you knew Joe Yaros or Linda Kolark.
No, I knew Mr. Colbert over in Portland, and he's the one who was in charge of that.
We're covered, Minerals, right, is covered out of Avon for this area, right? And the lack of staffing at the DEC, what it will do is it will limit the number of wells that are drilled. The permitting process, and I'm going to just tell you what the DEC tells me, and you work for the agency. But the permitting process, the same people that approve the permits are the people that do the well inspections. And they don't approve a permit until they are far along enough with a well that's currently being drilled, cemented, and put online that they have the time to go back and do the permit, the review of the permits. So this lack of staffing at the DEC level, at least the Minerals Division tells me, will not mean that we're going to have a whole lot of wells that aren't going to be overseen. What it means is we're going to have a few wells that are going to be tightly overseen. Because they are not going to issue permits unless they have staffing level there to oversee what's going on.
Let's hope. I mean,
Well, all I can tell you is what DEC policy is, and what I have been told by the head of the Minerals Division and by his staff that oversees this region, and what the experience has been here over the past 8 or 9 or 10 years that they've been drilling wells. You know, there are more permits, and you can go to the DEC website and look at them. There are more permits that are stuck in limbo than there are permits that are approved. And when I said that I thought I was the first person to take samples out of Novak Farm, apparently you did it before me, but I did take samples in 1973, and I took them to SUNY Binghamton, and I gave them to the gentleman who did all the work on mercury and tuna. And they ran the sample, they ran samples of the chemistry using gas chromatograph. So that's why I thought that I was the first person. I did not know that you would work on that before I had.
You know, they had to do the Novak Farm twice because they said the ground and everything around it was
Sure.
fine. It wasn't fine. We
But-
hired our own chemist to test the land, and it had to be done all over again. So who do you trust?
It's all about money, Steve.
I'll trust the DEC.
We need to move on. Yes.
You said that there were no wells contaminated in New York State since 1950. What do you know about the 9 wells up in Madison County that they no longer can use the water in?
With fracking chemicals. The wells in Madison County, that was a boneheaded thing that happened, and it's turbulence. It's not chemicals.
Their water is not into it.
And those wells are, I believe, usable now, at least when I talked to
My
them.
sister has a well up there. She can use it to wash clothes in, do dishes in, don't drink it. The gas company came in and gave her X amount of dollars so she could not go out and talk about this to anybody. And it's the same way with all those farmers had 80 head of cattle up there. And they came in, you can't even feed this water to your cows. They had to drill new wells up there. And you said there's no well contamination since 1950? That's contaminated well. I don't care what you're saying. You can't sit up there and say there's been no well contamination.
What I will give you, if you want, I'll give you the DEC's reports on that. That's all I can tell you.
It
I
doesn't
know
help the
I'm
people in
here for a
Madison County.
hostile audience. I guess if that's, to be expected.
Hi, I don't have any names to drop, and I'm a newcomer relatively, but I don't see it as being hostile. I think people are very concerned. I'm very concerned. I don't like one bit of this. I didn't move here to have, a couple of dollars run into the town for a mere 15 to 20 years and then leave a horrendous looking landscape. That's not what I came here for. So, and I don't think it's being hostile. Nobody's getting violent or threatening. People are very concerned. I don't believe everything that's being sold by these big companies. And personally, I think it is a conflict for you to be receiving and still be the advisor or whatever your proper title is, sir. So I don't see it as hostility. I think Mr. Conover needs to know that people of the town, they may not all want this for a couple of piddly dollars for a short time. It's not worth it to me. I have animals that want to drink water. I have land I want to grow food from. I don't like one bit of it, just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good. You got it.